So, Stop Kony 2012. You've probably seen this posted on a lot of videos. You've probably seen people get messages about it on their Facebooks. You've probably gotten messages about it on your videos and on your Facebook and Twitter and everything else. And so if you don't know what that is, the first thing I advise you do is actually to go to the link in the info down there and click on it and watch the full video yourself. It's 30 minutes, but it's extremely well edited, and it has really good camera work and pacing, and it's actually not boring in the least to watch, and it will probably keep you enthralled. But for a TLDR version of what it's about, there's this guy down in Uganda and the surrounding areas and such named Joseph Kony, who is basically kidnapping children and turning them into either A, sex slaves, or B, child soldiers. Now, obviously, this is a bad thing. I don't think that point needs to be argued, but the thing is he's got an army of about 30,000 people strong, but due to the way that the media works in America, along with a lot of other factors, the vast majority of people in America and globally probably have no idea who the hell this is until that video was made. Now, I actually do remember reading an article about Invisible Children, which is the group that made that video that's trying to get this whole thing into the light. And I actually remember reading, I can't remember if I read it in Discover or if I read it in National Geographic or something. I can't remember where I read it, but I did read it. And back then I thought it was pretty nuts that this was going on, but obviously it's apparently still going on. Or maybe it's not. I don't know, because that's what I'm going to get into with some of the critiques a little bit later on. So please bear with me here and continue to watch this when I get into the critiques. But obviously, though, this needs to be stopped. I mean, nobody's going to argue that point. This needs to be stopped. But what the problem is that if it's not a direct threat to Americans and it's not happening on American soil, a lot of the government refuses to either take action, or they say they can't take action because, it started a lot of hey, you're butting into other people's business, all that stupid stuff, whatever else. So anyways, that's basically as it stands, and the reason that this video was made, the Stop Kony video, is because the filmmakers feel that if we can get enough attention to Joseph Kony, akin to how pretty much everybody globally knew who Hitler was, everybody globally still knows who he is, obviously, knew and still knows about Osama bin Laden, etc., and because of that publicity, it gave the respective governments of the world, a notice like, hey, we, the citizens, want this guy captured or detained or whatever else, we want him out of there. We don't want him, harming people left and right. And so that's what the general theory is on this video, is that if we can get enough people to find out about Joseph Kony, then the government will take notice and they will put more and more emphasis on capturing him. And they've already sent some troops the American government has to Uganda and the surrounding areas to try and fix this situation. So that's basically what the video is about. Now, the thing is there are a few counterpoints to this that I'd like to point out, and I personally cannot verify the validity of these because I haven't been, where this is happening, so I can't verify this. I'm just going from what I've read from other news sites that apparently are getting backed up by people who are in the know from what I've heard and what I've read. So don't take this, what I'm saying here, as fact. Just take it as, what I've read. So the first thing is there's this website here that I'm going to also link in the info. It'll be the second link down, and it'll be called Critique 1. And apparently it's saying that, one, basically, when you think about a problem like this, what needs to be done is actual action. And I'm not saying that the Invisible Children people are not doing action. Obviously, they're doing action by making this video, and they're getting hundreds of thousands and millions of people to rally for support for all this. So obviously, they are doing action. But what the person in that article pointed out is that what needs to be done is actual physical action to capture this, which again involves governments going out there and actually doing something, instead of just, as they put it, throwing money at the problem. To quote what they said, is basically just, throwing money at the problem. And so that's not a good idea. And another thing that somebody pointed out in that article is that what we're basically doing, now this may be a little bit extreme, okay, so don't get all butthurt about this or whatever else. I'm just saying, if you look at it from a logical standpoint, remove everything else, this is sort of true, that if we go way out of our way to help people in a situation like this, you know, America brings the big guns and we blow them all up and everything else, you know, we're essentially going to teach those people that if you get in trouble, don't actually try and fix it yourself, just call on us. We're, you know, just come rely on us. We're going to be the mama and papa that's going to come and, you know, tell them that they're being a bad boy and they need to get the fuck out of Dodge, etc. Now, I don't think it's as cut and dry as that, and I'm sure that the people in Uganda and surrounding areas have obviously tried very hard to get this guy out, and 30,000 people in an army armed with guns and, you know, vehicles and everything else is obviously not going to be something that the random civilian can just go out and be like, "Hey, man, you get the fuck out," and it's not gonna work. But I am just pointing out, though, that is something that does happen in certain places, is that you have people with the weapons and the guns and everything else that ride in like Captain America and such, and then you kind of, you know, get them in the mental state. It's like that. It's like that saying, you know, you can give a man fish or you can teach him to fish, kind of thing, right? You know, it's like you can give a man fish and he'll never go hungry, or you can teach him how to fish for himself and he'll never go hungry, that kind of thing. Now, again, I don't know how much of an impact this is actually having in this situation. This could be a completely different situation. This could not be applicable, again, because of the weapons and all the other stuff being far more than the average civilian could take. But that is a point that they do bring up. The other point is that, well, not only they bring up, it's actually other articles I've read that in and stuff like that, and other opinions have brought that up. So if that's not in that article, my mistake. It may be in other articles, so take that into account. That's why you should read the article yourself. Another thing that people are bringing up is that apparently, similar to how Osama bin Laden was kind of like, you know, we had all this stuff going on in America, like, you know, Osama bin Laden's gonna come get us if we don't constantly keep pressure on him, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, he was like hiding in caves and stuff like that, and like all, you know, pretty much on his last legs for like the last few years before he died. And so that's what a lot of people are saying is happening to Kony, is that he is not, you know, actively going out there and just killing people by the thousands anymore. He's like on his last legs and pushed out of Uganda and into more remote territories where he doesn't really have as much influence and his army's dwindled and so forth. Now, I'm not saying, you know, we should just be like, oh, let's just let him off the hook, whatever, you know, have a good day, here's a spot of tea, you know. But I am saying that some of the things in that video possibly were exaggerated some, and that the threat of finding, of what he's doing, and as well as finding him, may not be as dire as it sounds, and that we do have a little bit more extra time to get him than we originally thought. Now, again, as I reiterate, I'm not saying that this is just, oh, let's not care anymore. I'm saying that this is clarifying the situation a little bit, that there may be some hyperbole in that video, and that there may be ways that we can still catch him and such, and etc., that, you know, we don't have to, like, freak out that he's doing as much damage as he originally was, so to speak. So, there's that point. And then, what was the last point on here he had? Oh, apparently, peace talks, I know this was brought up in the video, peace talks have been progressing for a while there. And again, I know in the video it said that peace talks happen and then it goes right back into violence. But apparently this person in this article is saying that, you know, there have been real peace talks happening between the rebels and so forth. So, again, I don't know how true that is. I'm just saying what it says in the article and so forth. One thing I'd like to bring up is that the whole covering everything at night in April, is that legal? Is that actually, like, allowed to just cover, like, buildings, possibly even government buildings, you know, street signs, everything else, like, with those posters? I don't know. I mean, if anybody's a legal expert in the comments, you should let me know about that, because I'm kind of wondering. You know, it's like, where I live, I don't think there's going to be much that's going to happen, because this is not really a internet, you know, savvy town. This isn't really up on the curve, on the latest bleeding edge of technology. But places like New York and Los Angeles and so forth, you know, I could see lots of people just going and doing this, and so I kind of wondered about that. The last point I'd like to get into here is that apparently, according to Wikipedia, they have filed for assets and stuff like that, the Invisible Children, you know, business has. And I have to ask on here, again, according to Wikipedia, I don't know if this is just somebody just put this in here, if this is true or not, they filed for the following assets, and a few of them seem definitely plausible because of money, but they have down $751,000 in computer equipment. Now, I have to kind of ask about that because, I mean, I have a monster of a computer. I have a very strong computer. I have 8 gigabytes of RAM, 8 terabytes of hard drive space, 2 DVD drives, like 10 USB ports, a quad-core i7 3 gigahertz processor, a Radeon 5700 HD card. You know, it's not government-level computer, but for a civilian, that's a damn good computer, you know? And, I mean, that cost me everything together. All the hard drives, everything else, cost me probably around $2,000. Now, $751,000, I mean, I don't know where that would come from unless you're building like these gigantic servers that are just like the size of like, I don't even know what, like the size of like a, you know, 6 or 7 houses put together. I'm not really sure what they'd use that for because it's mainly a movement of, you know, helping people out and stuff like that. You don't really need more than like 10 or 15 computers for people to edit stuff, and you know that's really stretching. You really only need 1 computer for people to edit stuff on. But you know, I don't really know where that's coming from at all. Maybe they're counting everything else, like counting video and camera equipment as computers. I don't know. But that's listed on here separately too as $177,000. And again, I have, you know, high definition cameras for like under $1,000, so I don't really know where that's coming from either. Anyways. But aside from all that, I'm not docking this movement, and I do think it's a good thing, and I do think, if anything, it shows how much the world has changed, as the video has said, in the past, even just 20 years. Like, when I was 7 years old, AOL came out in 92, I believe, if I got that date right. And, you know, it changed everything for me. The fact that I could go on something called the internet and actually talk and communicate with other people in real time, and it wasn't like a phone, and I could talk with like 10 to 15 people at once. And then stuff like, you know, instant messengers came out, and then as time went on, stuff like, you know, MySpace, and then now Facebook and everything, you know, and you can communicate with. I mean, that's a big deal, and that does change the game, as they said. And it is really uplifting that something like this kind of a movement would have never, ever been possible even just 20 years ago. It just wouldn't have been possible. I mean, this is akin to, like, you know, a lot of the protests and stuff like that of the 70s, but it's not just in California or in New York or in just America even as a whole. It's globally, and you can do it like that. That video spread globally in one day. I can safely say that at least 1,000 people from every town and continent and country, and I know I did that in an odd order, etc., you know, have seen that video. And I mean, that's pretty nuts to think. And it's also pretty nuts to think that it is actually advocating change, and because of what these people did, they actually got the government to stand up and listen and actually get people sent to try and rectify the problem. And that means that they are affecting change, and they are cutting through the noise, so to speak, to actually do something positive. So, outside of the controversy or criticism with whether or not there actually is, you know, peace talks going on, or whether he's on his last legs and he's about to be captured, or whether they've been buying computers that are not at all frugally built, to say the least, aside from all that criticism and critique and controversy, they're still doing something good, and they're still doing something that's actually affecting people positively. So, you know, you really can't complain about that. So that's my whole critique, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, on it. Sorry for some of the sort of points got kind of muddled there, like I kind of lost my track, etc., but that's what happens when you do this mainly unscripted, and also when you do it in one go without any cuts or anything else like that. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and hopefully it filled you in a little bit more on you know, the stuff that's going on. And God, I burp so much after I eat. I know a lot of people burp after they eat, but God, I just have that so bad. Like, I know I've been diagnosed with minor acid reflux before. Just another thing to add on to my like list of like medical problems. It's like, at this point, I wish I could go on like House MD and just see if he could like actually figure out all the medical stuff I have. Like, I wish he could do that. Like, I wish that existed, and it would be like the ultimate challenge. I would be like the final boss of like House MD, of like all the medical stuff I have, and be like, you know what? I'm not gonna tell you anything about myself. Figure out all the medical ailments I have, because I got at least like 15 of them. So good fucking luck, buddy. Good luck. And then he'd be like, oh my god, a ball bounced down the street, and when it spun, it did a backspin, and because of that backspin, I figured out that the atoms are rotating in your body in an irregular way, and that has caused the entire problem. Holy shit.